And I'm going to switch to English, okay? Well, and I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so this is not here. Let's start with some concepts related to techniques, methods, and approaches, right? So when teaching, we're going to take into account what is going to be some like three important elements in order to provide a very good class with very good interaction, and also at the end to have a very good and extremely good um, feedback. Okay. With that being said, we're going to take into account here some definitions about what is approach, what is here method or strategy, and then what is technique. Okay. So let's start with the first one. So first one says that an approach is an enlightened viewpoint of teaching. So it's going to give you some like the clues on how to teach, what to teach, and yeah, and who to teach, right? By saying that we're going to have a philosophical and viewpoint and an orientation on how the teaching process is going to be done, right? What to select, what method is going to be part of this approach, okay? Let's see some of the stages inside what an approach is. So we have right here 2, 4, 6 different items. The first one says that it specifies the major goal of teaching. So the approach is going to be based on that, what to teach and how to teach it. B, to given the given priorities among the three domains, right? So in this case, we're going to take into account what is going to be the teacher, the material, and the student, right? Then what is going to be the role of the teacher, the expectations from students, the nature of teaching learning process, and finally, the kind of evaluative techniques and suitable teaching process strategies to be employed. So meaning that this is going to be the global part, okay? So this is going to be just the biggest aspect when teaching. It doesn't matter if it's going to be just teaching a language or teaching any other subject, okay? Okay, so there are going to be two main points here that we can see. The first one says, all approaches of teaching are viewpoints of teaching, but not all viewpoints of teaching are considered approaches of teaching, right? So one thing right here is what you think about how to teach a class. Maybe you're going to be close to an idea of an approach, but it is not going to be an approach. An approach has been developed by experts, right? Experts who have researched a lot related to this component, right? The second point right here is going to be the selection of an instructional method is based on a given approach, right? So for example, we're going to see an approach, but what we're going to use inside this approach, which kind of methods, which kind of strategies, right? This is going to be just the general issue related to what approach, method, and techniques are, right? So not to panic. Now, the methods or the strategies is going to be just the systematic, the organization, the plan, the procedure in the end, right? So this is going to be just so like an arrangement in which all these objectives are going to be done in a very specific way, right? So in order to maximize the learning output, right? And also to improve the teaching process. Give me a second, please. Okay. Now, the other part related to methods or strategies are going to guide and direct the teacher in all classes, right? In all activities related to the organization, related to how to use materials, which kind of materials are we going to use, right? So that is going to be just the method, right, or the strategy. So it's going to be just the set of instructions for you to follow. And the approach is going to contain the methods, right? Now, there are going to be just two ways in order for us to organize this and also to organize the materials. The first one is going to be just related to logical organization, right? So in order for us to use ideas, facts, materials, procedures in the end, but they need to have a kind of coherence, a kind of cohesion when being implemented. Example, if I'm going to use an activity, if I'm going to use a kind of methodology or method related for developing the oral comprehension, so you need to look for the audio files, number one. Number two, it could be the transcription, right? Number three, you're going to look for you're going to look for the right materials for the level of students, right? So that is going to be the way. And also you're going to look for excerpts from big audio files. So you're going to use, for example, 1 minute, 2 minute conversation audio file for the students to try to achieve the goal established here. Okay, let's see right here what is going to be just the way in which this logical organization is going to be achieved, right? So how? By association. Okay, I have a question here. Oh, I need to check. Okay, EG. What is EG? EG? I don't get it. Okay, so not to worry. I have right here a lot of examples for you to understand the whole thing, right? This class is going to be just based on these three aspects, right? So what is going to be approach, method, and techniques, but at a global way. Right now, I'm talking just at a global way, and then I'm going to start giving some conceptions about each term, right? For it to be understood, right? So not to worry if you don't understand it at once. So let's try to understand it step by step, right? But I'm going to give you a lot of ideas here. So I have like 6, 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different ideas for you to understand, right? So not to worry if you don't understand it at once. Maybe with the second example, you're going to understand it. Okay. Well, what to achieve with this logical organization? So number one, there's going to be an association of ideas and arranging no materials like books, letters, and the like systematically. What I was telling you before, right? So if we're going to work with a reading material, right? So let's say number one, you're going to give maybe the definitions. Number two, you're going to use the definitions of some terms inside a specific context. So for you to understand the use of the term. And then you're going to show the book for the student to learn to implement what he or she knows about that word, that term, within the context of the book, right? So that is going to be just organizing the activities or the materials at a logical way, right? So that everything is going to be connected. Number two is organizing ideas of a similar nature under appropriate headings. So you're going to say, for example, okay, we're going to work with this audio file. Let's work with oral comprehension. Then we're going to answer the following questions, but now you have to produce, right? Or you're going to listen to this audio file and there are going to be questions about that audio file, specific questions that can be found inside that audio file. So as I was telling you before, it's going to be just related to the nature of what you're going to implement. The third point is using suitable headings for the major divisions. I don't know if you have seen in YouTube, there are going to be some divisions about some videos that you can go to that section, and you know that you're going to find the explicit information there, right? So let's say that you're going to look for a 1 hour video, and every 15 minutes there's going to be a different set of ideas, or a different how can I say this, topic, right? So it's going to be like that. We're going to use headings or titles, right? Or we're going to tell, okay, so until here we're going to work with this activity, and then we're going to continue with the other activity, right? And finally, grouping the related subpoints, right? So this is like creating the general objective and then the specific objectives, but all of them need to be pointing out to only one goal, okay? The second aspect related to the organization of materials, right? Meaning the strategies or the methods you want to use is going to be just the psychological organization. But why? Because we need to learn something, okay? Okay, nice. But how are we going to learn a psychological organization? It is just because we make relationships about something, right? About some statements. If you see, for example, familiar information in the activity A, and then you're going to move forward the activity B, so talking about the logical sequence, if there's going to be a logical organization, then at a psychological way, you're going to try to understand things at an easier way. Let's put it in an extreme context, sorry. Let's say I'm talking about technology, and from nowhere I'm starting talking about politics, right? With no connection at all. So how are you going to understand what was aimed at being understood when talking about technology, and with the and what is going to be just the relationship between the old topic and the new topic? That is going to be just the psychological organization. So we have three statements right here, three elements. Number one, understanding how pupils learn things normally. That is why inside the classroom, you need to see which are the needs, the learning needs, the learning necessities that your students have, right? That is going to be number one. Why? Because you need to adapt your materials to your students. Number two, selecting those that seem to have a definite bearing on the given task. Okay, so let's say this. Once you have selected the activity or the materials you're going to implement, you have to be aware that there are going to be some materials that are going to be difficult to digest, and you know that, right? And there are some others that are going to be easier to comprehend. So if we want to work with all of these materials, start with the simplest one and then go to the most difficult to be understood. Remember what Brunner said. So, and Vygotsky also, right? So there's going to be some steps for you to learn, right? Scaffolding, if I'm not wrong. And in Spanish, it's going to be aprendizaje escalonado, right? So it's going to be step by step. First step, first level. Second step, second level, or the second part of the first level, right? And then making free and controlled associations needed in developing the work, meaning contextualizing everything, right? So you can know a lot of things about the theory, but what if you don't know anything about how to put it in practice, right? How to deal with this in the real world. So those are going to be the aspects we need to take into account here, okay? Now, technique. A technique right here is going to be just a particular thing for you to do inside the activity. Okay. So it is going to be inside the method, right? And also it's going to be just inside the approach. Let's remember, the biggest thing is going to be just the approach. The subsequent part is going to be just the method. And the tiniest one is going to be the what? The technique. Okay. Nice. I don't know what happened here. Okay. And then it is also defined as a procedural variation of a given method. It involves a highly personalized style of carrying out a particular step of a given method. Example, you're developing your class and there's going to be a kind of learning issue, a learning process, a learning problem, sorry, and you need to solve it at once. That's the technique. There's going to be just a particular trick, right, for you to work here. Okay. So those are going to be just the differences between approaches, techniques, and methods. I said that in a different structure. Okay. Let's see, for example, here, and I would like you to do that in this 5 minutes to look the difference between, in this case, it's going to be among, because it's going to be just a lot of things, right? Why? Because I said the theory, but I want you to give me your own perspectives about that, okay? So, among method, approach, and techniques. Well, it's not going to be here, right? Here we have an information, right? Tends to be nice. I'm going to share it in the chat. Oh, what is this? Ah, hey, it's not working. Where's Cam? Okay. Ah, here, look. And here. I'm going to give you this 2 web pages for you to ouch. Sorry. I'm going to give you right here. Beep, 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 beep. Where's the chat? Sorry, having issues with the okay, here this is with Prezi, and this one here is pure text, right? Yeah, this is an example. No, actually this is no, this is not. I didn't like it. This one seems nice. Hey, perfect. Okay. So, and this one. Let's have a 5-minute reading process, right? Read that, and then you're going to give me your conclusions about what? Strategy, method, technique, and approach. Well, actually, it doesn't say anything. Approach here. An approach is. Okay? And I'm going to continue with this one. Okay, it's 2 to 3. So let's say at 2 past 2, 3 past 2, I'm going to start asking for what they have understood about this, okay? In the meantime, I'm going to pause the recording. Okay, so based on what you have said, So here, Ricardo says, approach based on theories and assumptions. Yes, so it's going to be something like what the author, what the scientists, what the researchers have established related to what to do, how to do it, when to do it, who are going to do that, what is the role of everyone. So it's going to be just something like the step-by-step process that we have to do. The method is going to be the way to learn or teach in order to achieve objectives. Based on one objective, there's going to be a method, right? So that's going to be the way in which we're going to use this. And technique is going to be just maybe a different method that you can implement in order to solve only one single issue at a time. Okay, while the method is going to be just focused on one class at all. So that's going to be the way in which we have to understand this. Okay. Okay. Ricardo says method is the way in which the theory is put in practice. Didn't get the approach. The approach is going to be just the whole content, right? In which you're going to see what is going to be the role of the teacher, the role of the student, the role of the material, what to be expected when teaching, what to be expected when learning, when and how implementing something, what is going to be just the pre-process, during process, and post-process. So the approach is everything. It's going to be just the set of issues for you to implement. Okay, so that's going to be the approach. The method is going to be just based on only one objective, how to reach that objective. But based on that and what? Based on the approach, that's going to give you more ideas or more clues on how to achieve that method. Well, how to put in practice the method and how to achieve it. Okay. And the technique, for example, if you see that something's not working or you need to add something else, so you're going to implement that technique for only one purpose, and that's it. Okay. I hope you understand because there's going to be a quiz about this. So if you have questions, ask the questions. If you don't have questions, I assume you understood. What we use the
Teacher,
technique
so
for?
teacher, what could be like the main difference between approach, method, and technique, like in a word, or if we can say.
Okay, I'm going to put in this case. Let's say an approach is going to be just, for example, it's going to tell you everything about what you have to take into account, not only in the class, but inside the learning teaching process, right? So, for example, an approach to teach foreign languages, let's say action oriented approach, right? And in that, you're going to find what is going to be the role of the teacher, the role of the student, the role of the material, what to do, what not to do, what is expected to be done, everything. The method is going to tell you, for example, how to accomplish one objective, right? One specific objective by implementing a series of activities, right? So first we're going to do this activity, then we're going to continue with this other activity, and then we're going to continue with the other activity in a logical order. And technique, for example, let's say something like, okay, I finished. So I need to add something else for my students to learn a little bit more. And that's the technique. Okay. Guys, I needed to restart the connection with this chat room because we have less than 1 minute for this to end. Okay.